Hello friends and dear students and my colleagues. This video is on a very short concept related to the carrier mediated transports. Why did I feel the necessity to discuss this particular concept is very often the students tend to get mixed up between the carrier proteins and the other types of transport proteins like channels or ATPases, pumps. So therefore, the discussion will mostly revolve around the principles that govern the carriers. We will see what principles are controlling these carrier proteins, or their functions are driven by what type of principles. So, let's first look at the basics. There are four major types of transport proteins in the membrane. Any cell membrane can have either the pores. Pores generally are required for transport of water, movement of water across the membrane into the cells mostly. Then channels, sodium channels, potassium channels, they are required for simple diffusion. So simple diffusion occurs through the membrane by using the various channels. And the third is carriers, and the last one ATP dependent transporters, ATPases, pumps or ABC transporters. This discussion will revolve around the carrier proteins. So carriers are basically involved in two types of transports. They are involved in facilitated diffusion, and they are also, or rather the carriers, they carry out the secondary active transport. These two transports are carrier driven. Now, the basic difference is that facilitated diffusion, the carrier carries single substance at a time. So, one substance carried by this carrier when it is facilitated diffusion. The carrier involved in the facilitated diffusion, it will carry one substance at a time. Whereas secondary active transporter, the carrier protein carries two substances simultaneously. In exceptional cases, even three. But let's stick to the generalizations. Two substances carried at a time, that's by secondary active transporter. So, the common substance that is carried by both these transport processes is the glucose, of course. Glucose requires facilitated diffusion at some places, and it requires secondary active transport at some other places. Therefore, our discussion will revolve around the transport of glucose. Well, one cardinal feature or differentiating feature is that in the case of facilitated diffusion, the carrier carries the substance from its high to its low concentration. High to low concentration, the substance is being moved or transported. Look, diffusion, and this is important to understand, diffusion can occur from high to low concentration or low to high concentration, but net diffusion always occurs high to low concentration. It's called as the downhill transport, in the sense that the substance is going from its high to its low concentration. Although, note this point again, that even if it's a simple diffusion which is driven by kinetic energy of the diffusing substance, or if it's a facilitated diffusion which is driven by the carrier, I mean the substance binds with the carrier and then the carrier will carry the substance to the other side of the membrane. In both these cases, the substances can go high to low or low to high, but net diffusion will always occur from high to low concentration. So facilitated diffusion occurs from high to low concentration of that particular substance. Whereas in the case of secondary active transport, as I mentioned, two substances are transported at a time. Let's say sodium and glucose. The sodium will go from its high to its low concentration, and it's the glucose which is going from its low to its high concentration. And therefore, for the glucose transport, we call it as secondary active transport. So let that be clear. Sodium and glucose, two substances are being carried by this carrier. Well, let's write down the names of the carriers as well. Facilitated diffusion of glucose, the carrier name is GLUT, glucose transporter. And the secondary active transport for glucose, the carrier is SGLT, sodium glucose transporter. Right. So far it's clear to us that there are carriers needed for the transport of glucose. At some places, glucose is going to be transported from its high to its low concentration, and at other places, glucose is going to be transported from its low to its high concentration. So at such places, there is secondary active transport along with sodium. The core idea behind this video is that carriers can carry the substances from low to high concentration, as we are seeing right now, that glucose can be carried from its low to its high concentration. If that is possible, then how come in the case of facilitated diffusion, the carrier essentially carries the substance from high to low concentration? I repeat my question again. Facilitated diffusion, secondary active transport, both utilize the carriers, the GLUTs and the SGLTs, sodium glucose transporter. And we have seen just now that carrier can carry the substance from its low to its high concentration. Glucose can be transported from low to high concentration. So carrier has that ability to transport the substance from low to high concentration. Then how come in the case of facilitated diffusion, essentially the substance is moved downhill, means from high to low concentration? Why is that? To understand this, we need to understand the principles that govern these carriers. So that's the crux of the whole matter for this video discussion. Let's first understand the transport of glucose. Glucose entry into almost all cells of the body occurs by facilitated diffusion, right? Because glucose is going to enter the cells and will be metabolized. So it will be always the case that it's high in the plasma and low inside the cells, because it is getting continuously metabolized. So inside the cells, the glucose concentration will be low. And therefore, the transport is happening from high to low concentration. Once it enters the cell, it is trapped within the cell and then it gets metabolized. Which means glucose has to carry single membrane at this time, or rather at these places. It has to just cross one membrane, enter the cell, and that's it. Then it will be metabolized. In the case of GIT and kidney, the transport of glucose involves secondary active the carrier is involved in secondary active transport. Why is that? Because in the case of GIT and kidney, glucose has to cross two membranes. How come? because in the case of GIT and kidney, the glucose movement is occurring for the sake of absorption or reabsorption. Just an additional point, when we talk of GIT, glucose is getting absorbed from the GIT, and when we talk of kidney, we call it reabsorption, because glucose was filtered out by the glomerular filtration. It was going to be lost into the urine, but it is taken back into the body. So that's why it's called as reabsorption when we talk of renal tubules. So absorption or reabsorption of glucose in the GIT and kidney respectively, it involves crossing of two membranes simultaneously. Look, let's say here is a small portion of the gut, and there are cells lining the gut wall, and here is a glucose in the lumen, the glucose that was taken in the diet. This is the glucose in the lumen. Now it's going to be absorbed into the blood vessel. That means it's going to cross this lining cell. So it will enter the cell from one side, and on the other side of the membrane it will exit the cell, other side of the cell, it will exit the cell, it will cross the other membrane and enter the blood vessel. As you can see in the diagram, the membrane that is facing the lumen is called as apical membrane, and membrane that is facing the blood vessel is called as the basolateral membrane. Now, when the glucose moves from the lumen into the cell, means it is crossing the apical membrane, it is going from low to high concentration. And when it is going from the cell into the blood, that is, it is crossing the basolateral membrane to enter the blood vessel, there it is going from its high to low concentration. So first things first, we saw at other places glucose has to cross just one membrane and enter the cell, and then it will be metabolized. It's going high to low. In the case of GIT and kidney, it's going to cross two membranes simultaneously. So it happens like this. Now look, the carrier protein which is in the basolateral membrane is little slower in the transport of glucose, and because of that glucose tends to accumulate inside the cell. So high concentration of glucose inside this cell which is lining the GIT or lining the renal tubules. Therefore, you can see here glucose accumulated within the cell, that means high concentration, and therefore the movement of glucose is lumen into the cell is going low to high, and then from the cell into the blood it's going high to low. So where it is going low to high, it uses the carrier protein which is called as SGLT, sodium glucose transporter. And then on the other side, when it exits the cell, leaves the cell and enters the blood vessel, it's going high to low. It uses the transport protein, that's GLUT, and to be more precise, it's GLUT2. Almost 13 different types of GLUT have been identified. 3 types of SGLT have been identified. So in this particular case, whenever glucose is entering the cells, it uses different types of GLUTs. But whenever it is leaving the cell, when the glucose leaves the cell, like in this case, glucose is leaving the cell and going high to low concentration, it uses GLUT2. Please remember this. GLUT2 is the carrier protein that allows the glucose to leave the cell, or that's how the glucose is moved out of the cell. For example, glycogenolysis, glycogen breakdown, so that glucose is formed inside the cell, the liver cell or muscle cell, and then that glucose comes out of the cell and enters the blood. so that the blood glucose rises. Over here also, after the glycogenolysis, when glucose has to come out of the cell, it uses GLUT2. So please keep this in mind. Whenever the glucose has to leave the cell, it uses GLUT2 as the carrier protein. So far so good. We have two types of carrier proteins, one involved in facilitated diffusion, and that carrier protein carries only one substance at a time. The other involved in the secondary active transport, it carries two substances at a time. One of them is going high to low and the other one is going low to high. So it's going to be the secondary active transport of that substance which is going from low to high concentration. All right. Now, let us now answer that very important question, that the carrier can carry the substance even from low to high concentration for that particular substance. Then how come is it that in the case of facilitated diffusion, it does carry from high to low only? Why the net transport is from high to low? So let's answer that question now. Facilitated diffusion, the principle of that carrier is something like this. There is a carrier protein in the membrane for the facilitated diffusion. Let's show it diagrammatically. And now note this particular point. That will be the key to your understanding of this topic. The principle is high concentration, high affinity, low concentration, low affinity. I repeat once again. What is the principle for the carrier protein which causes facilitated diffusion? Means from high to low concentration of that particular substance. The principle is high concentration is equal to high affinity, low concentration is equal to low affinity. I am putting it in simpler terms. Which means what? Wherever there is a high concentration, let me just write it simultaneously. Wherever there is high concentration of that substance, because of the high affinity, the substance will bind to the carrier. And wherever there is low concentration of that substance, that is on the other side of the membrane, because of the low affinity of that substance to the carrier, the substance will be released. Okay. So this is the principle on which the facilitated diffusion carrier works. Right. Glucose high on the outside of cell and low on the inside of cell, and this is the carrier protein. So high concentration, high affinity, low concentration, low affinity. I am putting it in plain terms. So that means wherever there is high concentration, the glucose will bind with the carrier, and wherever there is low concentration, low affinity, the glucose will be released. And therefore, it has to move in that particular certain direction. Therefore, the glucose will be transported from high to low concentration essentially. Please understand once again, diffusion, whether it is simple or facilitated, it can occur from high to low concentration or low to high concentration, but the net transport always occurs from high to low concentration. Whether it's simple diffusion, which occurs by kinetic energy of the particles. So kinetic energy can move the particles in any direction, high to low, low to high, but net occurs from high to low concentration. Facilitated diffusion, carrier mediated. So carrier can carry from high to low or low to high, but net transport will occur from high to low concentration only because of this principle. That high affinity, so binding will occur, and then low affinity, the substance will be released. That is how it is transported. So it will go from high to low concentration. There are certain models which have been hypothesized for this type of transport. flip-flop model. Flip-flop model means in the flip state, the glucose will bind with the carrier, and then after binding, it will go into the flop state on the other side of the membrane, and the glucose will be delivered, will be released. So in this manner, the carrier goes on getting changed between flip state and flop state. Flip, flop, flip, flop. That's how it binds, then releases, binds, releases. Ferry boat model, another model which has been hypothesized for the carrier protein. The ferry boat, it acts like a ferry boat. So it binds, then delivers the substance on the other side, then again goes into the first conformational state, again binds, then again goes back, releases the substance. Various models which have been postulated for this, right? But the key thing in this particular video is this: wherever there is high concentration, there is high affinity. Wherever there is low concentration, there will be low affinity. That's the principle that governs the carrier protein involved in facilitated diffusion. Let's now talk about secondary active transport. In the case of glucose, the transporter is SGLT. The carrier is SGLT, sodium glucose transporter. It carries sodium and glucose. Sodium will be transported from high to low concentration of itself. I mean, sodium is going from its high to its low concentration, and glucose is going from its low to its high concentration. We saw that in the case of GIT and kidney, low to high concentration using SGLT, the secondary active transport. So, secondary active transport of glucose, because it's going from low to high concentration. Whenever I ask the students, how come the glucose is going from low to high concentration? Or why would you call it active? Why are we calling it active transport? Immediately the student says, because this carrier must be utilizing ATP. Therefore, we are calling it active. And the substance, the glucose, is going from low to high concentration. No, that's not the correct concept. That's not the correct conceptual understanding of this secondary active transport. The carriers don't use ATPs directly. And that's why, that's the reason why it's being called secondary active transport. Carriers do not use ATP, metabolic energy, directly. So how is it that this carrier is able to carry two substances? And how is it that the glucose is going from low to high concentration? To understand this, let us first understand a very, very important sentence. That is, the secondary active transports are possible and are absolutely dependent on the primary active transports. I repeat once again, please underline this fact. Please consolidate, crystallize this fact in your mind. The secondary active transport is made possible only by the primary active transports in the membrane. If the primary active transport is not happening, then secondary active transport also will not occur. It will stop. Let's understand this. The primary active transport is sodium-potassium pump. So here is a sodium-potassium pump in the membrane, and what does it achieve? The primary active transport, that is sodium-potassium pump, it utilizes the ATP directly and sends the sodium from inside to outside of the cell. By this time, this is a primary active transport, the sodium-potassium ATPase. So it will directly break down the ATP and energize this transport of sodium from low to high concentration, from inside to outside of cell. Fine, no issues there. Sodium is going from low to high concentration by the activity of this pump. I'm not talking about carrier right now. Carrier has not come into the picture so far. This is primary active transporter, and that's called as ATPase or pump. It's not a carrier. It's called as pump or ATPase. What is it achieving? It breaks down it binds the ATP and breaks down the ATP then and there directly, and energizes the transport of sodium from inside the cell to the outside of cell. That means from low concentration of sodium to the high concentration of sodium. So primary active transport moves the sodium from inside to outside of cell. That means it is creating and it is widening the concentration gradient for sodium. Look, already sodium was low inside the cell and high on the outside, and this primary active transporter, the sodium potassium pump, is further widening, further exaggerating that concentration gradient. It is still further sending the sodium from inside to outside. Means sodium is going to become higher and higher in concentration on the outside and low on the inside. Is that clear so far? Primary active transport creates and widens, exaggerates the concentration gradient for sodium. Okay, we are taking sodium potassium pump, so I'll talk about sodium. Right. Now, what is the situation? Sodium concentration has become high on the outside and low on the inside. Is that right? Yes. That means a concentration gradient for sodium has been established. Now, because of this concentration gradient, the sodium will be pulled in. Now we are talking about the secondary active transport. There is a concentration gradient for sodium that has got established. By whom? By the sodium potassium pump. That concentration gradient now will drive the sodium into the cell from high to low concentration. So, potential energy stored in this concentration gradient will be utilized by the carrier to carry another substance along with sodium, and that's glucose. The second substance is glucose. So here is a carrier involved in secondary active transport of glucose. What is it doing? It is utilizing the concentration gradient for sodium. Who created that concentration gradient? The sodium potassium pump, the ATPase. The ATP was utilized here and not by this carrier, the secondary active transport carrier. ATP was directly utilized by the primary active transporter. It created the concentration gradient for sodium. So therefore, sodium is now high on the outside and low on the inside. Therefore, now there is a pull on sodium to come in. The potential energy, that pull will be utilized by the carrier to carry sodium and glucose into the cell. But whereas sodium is now coming from high to low concentration, glucose will be entering the cell from its low to its high concentration. So one substance is going from high to low concentration and the other substance is going from low to high concentration. So that will be the secondary active transport for that particular substance which is going from low to high concentration. In this case, it's the glucose, and the carrier is SGLT. So in summary, primary active transport creates the concentration gradient for sodium. That concentration gradient now drives the sodium into the cell, high to low concentration. that driving force, that pull, that potential energy is utilized by the carrier, the SGLT, and it will carry sodium and glucose. But sodium is now coming from high to low concentration and glucose is moving from low to high concentration, and therefore that's the secondary active transport for the glucose. So when the sodium binds with the carrier, there will be a conformational change again, just as we saw in the case of facilitated diffusion, that the substance binds the carrier on one side of the membrane and then the carrier goes to have a conformational change, and then the substance is delivered on the other side of the membrane. Similarly, as the sodium binding happens with the carrier, it will go into it will have a conformational change, and then glucose binding and glucose movement will be carried out. So that is, and therefore I mentioned again and again, if the primary active transport stops, then secondary active transports are impossible to be carried out. If the sodium potassium pump fails, then glucose will not be absorbed from the GIT and kidney. Remember, glucose uses secondary active transports in GIT and kidney and uses SGLT. That's possible only if sodium potassium pump, which is the primary active transport, that is functioning. So that is the comparison between the facilitated diffusion and secondary active transport. Just summary, the principles. Facilitated diffusion, the principle is high concentration is equal to high affinity, low concentration is equal to low affinity, and therefore the substance is essentially moved from high to low concentration. Secondary active transport, the principle is there is a concentration gradient created by the primary active transport utilizing the ATP directly, and that concentration gradient will now be utilized by the secondary active transport carrier to carry that first substance, primary substance, and another substance, that's glucose. So binding of one substance, then the conformational change, and then the second substance will be transported using that conformational change and that potential energy which was utilized by the carrier. That's the carrier mediated transport. In summary, example is glucose, and that's the principle behind these two transport processes.